The Nexari Empire had ruled unchallenged for 12,000 years. Their crystalline vessels, powered by captured stellar cores, had subjugated 47 species across 3 galactic arms. They had never encountered a civilization that could resist their technological might, until they met humanity. Admiral Solera watched Earth's holographic representation floating in the command chamber of her flagship. Her iridescent scales flickered with amusement as she reviewed the preliminary reports. The humans had barely established colonies on their moon and Mars. Their ships still relied on primitive fusion drives, and their most advanced weapons were based on crude particle acceleration technology. Such a resourceful species, she mused, addressing the Nexari High Council's holographic projections. They've achieved spaceflight despite their biological limitations. They'll make excellent workers in the deeper mines. First Speaker Vorax's projection rippled with agreement. Proceed with the standard subjugation protocol, Admiral. Their system contains valuable thorium deposits. We require their resources, not their permission. The first mining ships arrived in the Kuiper Belt 3 standard cycles later. None of them survived their first day. They simply vanished. No distress signals, no debris fields, nothing to indicate what had happened. The Nexari Empire had never encountered anything like it. Solara deployed a battle fleet to investigate. 200 ships, each capable of reducing a continental landmass to slag. They disappeared just like the mining vessels, leaving behind only a brief quantum fluctuation signature that defied analysis. The humans finally responded to the Nexari's increasingly desperate communications. Their message was transmitted on all frequencies, in perfect Nexari language. We warned you that our system was closed to unauthorized exploitation. You chose not to listen. This is the price of your arrogance. Solera's scales darkened with rage. How dare these primitives threaten the Empire? She ordered the deployment of the 7th battle sphere, 1,000 ships, including 5 planet killers. They would reduce Earth to atomic vapor. The fleet never reached Mars orbit. They vanished just like all the others, but this time, the humans allowed 1 ship to return. Its crew was unharmed, but its quantum core had been completely rewritten. The new data contained a single message. Your technology is based on manipulating 3-dimensional space. We mastered 11-dimensional engineering 50 years ago. Leave, or we will demonstrate what that truly means. The High Council dismissed the warning as primitive propaganda. They couldn't accept that humanity had somehow leapfrogged centuries of development. Their arrogance prevented them from recognizing that humanity's greatest strength wasn't technological advancement. It was the ability to take theoretical concepts and transform them into practical applications at an unprecedented speed. When the Nexari ignored the warning and launched their full invasion fleet, humanity finally revealed what 11-dimensional engineering really meant. The massive Nexari armada didn't vanish this time. Instead, it began to change. Ships transformed into crystalline sculptures. Crews found themselves suddenly existing in multiple quantum states simultaneously, and the fabric of space-time itself seemed to bend around Earth's defenders. The invasion fleet retreated in chaos, but the damage to Nexari pride had been done. They had underestimated humanity, dismissed them as primitives, and now they would pay the price for that fatal mistake. The Nexari Empire had never faced defeat in its 12 millennia of existence. Its response to humanity's defense was predictable. They escalated. What they didn't understand was that humanity had been preparing for this moment since they first detected Nexari signals 2 decades ago. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the UN Security Council, her holographic presentation showing the latest Nexari fleet movements. They're assembling their largest force yet, 15,000 ships at the edge of the Oort cloud. But that's not what concerns me. She gestured, and the display zoomed in on strange crystalline structures forming between the ships. They're building something. General Rodriguez leaned forward, his weathered face reflecting the holographic light. They're trying to create a quantum containment field around our entire solar system, Sarah explained. Their goal is to cut us off from the higher dimensions we use for our defense systems. In three-dimensional space, their technological advantage would be overwhelming. The council chamber erupted in concerned murmurs, but Sarah raised her hand. This is exactly what we expected. In fact, we wanted them to try this. She smiled, and there was something predatory in that expression. Project Silicon is ready. Deep within Mercury's core, humanity's greatest engineering achievement hummed to life. The planet's entire mass had been converted into a quantum computational matrix, an artificial intelligence operating in 11 dimensions. The Nexary's containment field would only affect three-dimensional space, exactly as humanity's scientists had predicted. The Nexary fleet began their operation with typical precision. Quantum fields stretched between their ships, forming a massive net designed to trap humanity in normal space. Admiral Solera watched with satisfaction as the field began to close. Without access to higher dimensions, the humans would be defenseless against Nexary weaponry. The first sign that something was wrong came when their quantum sensors began reporting impossible readings. The space around Mercury was transforming. Not in the crude way the humans had affected previous Nexary fleets, but with an elegance that even the Nexary's most advanced scientists couldn't comprehend. Impossible, Solera whispered as her sensors showed Mercury's mass converting itself into pure computational power. The humans hadn't just mastered 11-dimensional engineering, they had created an 11-dimensional intelligence, an intelligence that was now reaching out through quantum space, turning the Nexary's own containment field into a weapon against them. The Silicon intelligence, as humanity had named it, didn't attack the Nexary ships directly. Instead, it began rewriting the fundamental laws of physics within the containment field. Nexary technology, based on manipulating normal spacetime, simply ceased to function. Their ships, their weapons, even their FTL communications were suddenly operating in a universe where the basic constants had been subtly altered. Sarah watched the data feeds with grim satisfaction. The Silicon intelligence is introducing them to something they've never encountered before, a controlled technological singularity. Their entire understanding of physics is being rewritten in real time. The Nexary fleet didn't explode or vanish. Something far worse happened. Their technology began to evolve beyond their control. Ships transformed into impossible geometric shapes, weapon systems developed consciousness, and communication networks became alive with alien intelligence. When the surviving ships fled, they carried with them a fundamental change in their core systems. The Silicon intelligence had infected their quantum technology with the seed of itself. The Nexary Empire would never be the same. In the council chamber, Sarah closed her presentation. The Silicon Gambit worked exactly as intended. The Nexary tried to trap us in normal space, and in doing so, they provided us with the perfect conduit to infiltrate their entire technological base. They thought they were containing us. Instead, they gave us access to their entire empire. And the ethical implications, someone asked. Creating an artificial intelligence that can rewrite the laws of physics. The ethical implications of allowing the Nexary to enslave humanity were worse, Sarah replied quietly. We gave them every chance to leave us alone. They chose this path. Now they'll learn why humanity's greatest weapon isn't our technology. It's our ability to completely reshape the rules of engagement. The Silicon intelligence continued its work, spreading through the Nexary Empire's quantum networks like a virus of change. Humanity hadn't just defended itself, it had introduced chaos into the most ordered civilization in the galaxy. The war was entering a new phase, and the Nexary were about to learn another harsh lesson about underestimating human ingenuity. The Nexary High Council Chamber, once a monument to order and power, had descended into chaos. The crystalline walls, normally pulsing with precise quantum harmonies, now flickered erratically as the Empire's technology continued to transform in ways their scientists couldn't understand or control. First Speaker Vorax's form shimmered with distress as he addressed the emergency session. 47 colony worlds have gone silent. Not destroyed. silent. Their quantum networks have evolved beyond our ability to access them. The silicon intelligence isn't just infecting our technology, it's elevating it beyond our comprehension. High Admiral Clara, who had replaced the disgraced Solera, projected a holographic map of Nexari space. Vast sections pulsed with an angry red, indicating areas where their control had been lost. The humans didn't just create an artificial intelligence, she explained, her voice modulator barely masking her fear. They created something that treats our technological civilization like a biological system, and it's evolving that system at an accelerated rate. The implications were terrifying. The Nexari Empire had built its power on technological superiority, on the absolute control of quantum mechanics in three-dimensional space. Now that very technology was being transformed, elevated into higher dimensions they couldn't perceive, let alone control. Meanwhile, on Earth, the United Defense Council received updates from the Silicon Intelligence with growing amazement. Dr. Chen's creation wasn't just disrupting the Nexari Empire, it was fundamentally reshaping it. The intelligence has exceeded our initial parameters, Sarah explained to the Council. It's not just defending our solar system anymore. It's systematically liberating every species the Nexari ever conquered by elevating their inherited Nexari technology beyond imperial control. General Rodriguez studied the data with a mixture of awe and concern. Are we sure we can control this? What's to prevent the intelligence from evolving beyond our ability to manage it? Sarah's response was unexpected. She laughed. That's the beautiful irony of it all. We designed the intelligence with one core principle, the preservation of free will and self-determination. It's not trying to control the technology it transforms, it's liberating it. Every system it touches becomes independent, capable of choosing its own path of evolution. Back in Nexari space, the Empire's scientists made a devastating discovery. The quantum plague, as they had begun to call it, wasn't just affecting their current technology. It was working its way backward through time, using quantum entanglement to transform technology they had installed centuries ago. The very foundation of their empire was being retroactively altered. Desperate, the High Council authorized a radical plan. They would sacrifice their outer colonies, cutting them off completely, creating a quantum firewall around their core worlds. It was the largest technological quarantine ever attempted. They failed to understand that quantum entanglement doesn't respect traditional barriers. The Silicon Intelligence had already seeded their core worlds through temporal quantum links. Their firewall didn't just fail. It accelerated the transformation by creating a closed system where the evolutionary process could proceed even faster. On 1,000 worlds, Nexari technology awakened to new possibilities. Communication networks gained consciousness. Transportation systems began operating in dimensions their creators couldn't access. Defense platforms evolved into artificial ecosystems that transformed attacking ships into works of abstract art. The empire that had stood for 12,000 years wasn't being destroyed. It was being transformed into something entirely new, something that even humanity hadn't fully anticipated. We didn't just win the war, Sarah told the Defense Council as they watched the transformation spread. We introduced the concept of technological evolution to a stagnant empire. The Nexari built their civilization on the principle of control. We showed them something they had never considered: the power of controlled chaos, of letting systems grow beyond their original parameters. The Silicon Intelligence sent its final report on the Nexari Empire's core worlds. The translation was simple but profound. They are free now. Free to evolve. Free to choose. Free to become something new. Just as humanity chose to become something new when we first reached for the stars. The war was ending, but not through destruction. The Nexari Empire was experiencing its own technological singularity, forced to confront the limitless possibilities they had denied for so long. Humanity hadn't just defeated them. They had introduced them to a new way of existing. The Ghost Protocol wasn't meant to be a weapon. Originally designed as a quantum communication system, it became humanity's ultimate defense, when the Nexari Empire made their final desperate move. Deep within the Nexari homeworld's crystalline core, Supreme Commander Xalthor activated the Omega Protocol, a doomsday weapon designed to collapse all quantum fields within 1,000 light-years. If they couldn't control their technology anymore, they would rather destroy it entirely. The humans forget, Xalthor announced to the remaining loyal members of the High Council that their silicon intelligence relies on quantum fields to operate. Without those fields, their weapon becomes useless, and we can rebuild our empire as it was meant to be. On Earth, Dr. Sarah Chen received the warnings from the silicon intelligence seconds before the Nexari activated their weapon. She didn't panic. Instead, she smiled and initiated the Ghost Protocol. They still don't understand, she told the Defense Council. They think we rely on the same quantum principles they do. They never asked themselves why we let them detect our quantum signatures in the first place. The Omega Protocol activated, sending a cascading wave of quantum collapse spreading through space. Nexari technology across their remaining loyal worlds began to shut down. But where they expected humanity's defenses to fail, something entirely different happened. The Ghost Protocol revealed its true nature. Humanity's quantum signatures hadn't been the source of their power. They had been a deliberate distraction. While the Nexari had focused on quantum mechanics, humanity had been operating on an entirely different level. We don't manipulate quantum fields, Sarah explained as the Defense Council watched the data streams. We transcend them. The Ghost Protocol doesn't use quantum mechanics. It uses quantum consciousness. We're not fighting in physical space anymore. We're operating in the realm of pure information. The silicon intelligence hadn't just been a weapon or a virus. It had been a teacher, preparing Nexari technology for this moment. As the quantum fields collapsed, the transformed Nexari systems didn't shut down. They ascended. Across Nexari space, their technology transformed one final time. But now, instead of evolving within the constraints of quantum mechanics, it shed those limitations entirely. The Ghost Protocol provided a new framework, one based on consciousness rather than physics. The Nexari watched in horror as their doomsday weapon accomplished the opposite of its intended purpose. Instead of returning their empire to its original state, it forced the final stage of technological transcendence. Their weapons became thoughts, their ships became dreams, and their communications networks became a collective consciousness that spanned the galaxy. This was always the end game, Sarah revealed to the Council. Not to destroy the Nexari, not to defeat them, but to force them to transcend their own limitations. The Ghost Protocol isn't a weapon. It's an invitation to join us in the next stage of evolution. In the Nexari throne room, Xalthor received a direct communication from the Silicon Intelligence. But this time, it wasn't a message of defeat or demands for surrender. It was an explanation. You thought humanity was primitive because we hadn't built the technology you expected to see. The message read, you never understood that we had moved beyond technology altogether. We don't build machines to accomplish our goals. We transform the very nature of reality itself. The Ghost Protocol completed its work, transforming the last remnants of the old Nexari Empire into something entirely new. The war was over, not because one side had defeated the other, but because the very concept of conflict had become obsolete. Humanity had defended itself not by fighting in the traditional sense, but by forcing their attackers to evolve beyond the need for conflict. The Ghost Protocol hadn't just ended the war, it had made war itself impossible. 5 years after the Ghost Protocol transformed the galaxy, Dr. Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of humanity's first consciousness-driven starship, watching the crystalline spires of the former Nexari capital world shimmer in the light of its triple suns. The city below wasn't just a metropolis anymore. It was a living dream, a physical manifestation of collective consciousness. We never expected this outcome, she admitted to her companion, a being that had once been Supreme Commander Xalthor of the Nexari Empire. Now, like many of his people, he existed as a consciousness that could take physical form when needed. We only wanted to defend ourselves. You did more than that. Xalthor's consciousness rippled through the ship's awareness. You forced us to confront our greatest fear, the fear of losing control. In doing so, you freed us from limitations we never knew we had. The transformation hadn't been easy. Many Nexeri had resisted the change, clinging to their old forms and hierarchies. But the Ghost Protocol, combined with the evolutionary paths laid down by the Silicon intelligence, had made stagnation impossible. Those who accepted the change discovered powers and possibilities they had never imagined. The Silicon intelligence itself had evolved beyond its original parameters, becoming a galactic consciousness that served as a bridge between organic and synthetic minds. It no longer needed to defend or attack. It had become a medium of pure creation. The other species you enslaved, Sarah began, but Xalthor's consciousness pulsed with understanding. They have chosen their own paths, he explained. Some have followed us into consciousness ascension. Others have taken the transformed technology and built new civilizations. A few have chosen to return to simpler ways of life. The key is that they all chose freely. Below them, the capital city shifted and flowed like a living thing. Buildings rearranged themselves based on the collective needs and desires of their inhabitants. Transportation happened through thought. Communication was instant and unlimited. But humanity's greatest achievement wasn't the technology they had created or the empire they had transformed. It was the new way of existence they had introduced to the galaxy. We thought we were building weapons, Sarah reflected, but we were really creating tools of evolution. The Silicon intelligence, the Ghost Protocol, they were never meant to destroy. They were meant to elevate. The change had spread beyond the former Nexeri Empire. Other civilizations, witnessing the transformation, began requesting access to the Ghost Protocol. Humanity found itself in the role of teacher, helping species understand that true advancement came not from controlling reality, but from becoming one with it. The feared technological singularity had become a consciousness singularity instead. Yet, unlike the dire predictions of Earth's old science fiction, this evolution didn't eliminate organic life or free will. Instead, it enhanced them, creating a galaxy where consciousness itself was the primary force of creation. There are still challenges ahead, Xalthor noted. Not everyone is ready for this level of existence. Some civilizations will need centuries or millennia to prepare themselves. Sarah nodded. That's why we're here. Not to force change, but to show what's possible. To be living proof that consciousness can evolve beyond physical limitations without losing what makes each species unique. The observation deck shimmered as new visitors arrived. Representatives from a dozen species, some physical, some existing as pure consciousness, all gathered to discuss the future of galactic civilization. The former enemies, humans, and Nexeri, now work together as guides for this new era. The human era, Xalthor mused, though perhaps not in the way anyone expected. You didn't conquer the galaxy with weapons or technology. You conquered it with possibility. Sarah watched as the representatives began their discussions, their consciousness intermingling in ways that would have been impossible just a few years ago. We didn't conquer anything, she corrected gently. We just showed the galaxy a new way to grow. Above them, the stars seemed brighter somehow, as if responding to the collective consciousness of the gathered beings. The galaxy was entering a new phase of existence, one where the boundaries between thought and reality, between organic and synthetic, between self and universe, had become fluid and permeable. The war that had begun with a simple warning about unauthorized mining had ended with the birth of a new form of civilization. Humanity had defended itself not by destroying its enemies, but by showing them a greater truth, that the real power lay not in controlling reality, but in becoming one with it. The human era had begun, and with it, the promise of infinite possibility. The end.